It's about passion, about realizing your dreams, to love what you do and to improve oneself further. Every day a little bit better, staying hungry. Because what defines success? Why are some people more successful than others? What makes a difference? Why are some people able to handle pressure and to deal with adversity better than others? This is interesting to me. Hello and welcome to 74 Once More. My name is Dieter Kalt and this podcast wants to take a look behind the mask of extraordinary people who are willing to share their story and their experiences to inspire and to help others. Talking to Luciano Basile, the latest guest in my show 74 Once More, felt like one of those rare opportunities where you can sit down with your mentor, ask some questions, take out your pen and just start listening and jotting down note after note, nugget after nugget. What more can I say about the multiple times Coach of the Year and champion in France with more than 40 years of experience in leading groups of people all over the world in all age groups, other than thank you. His life experiences and the way he was letting down his mask and he was sharing not only the highs but also the lows of his career gave me material for a great episode of 74 Once More, filled with wisdom, honesty, and inspiration. Luciano Basile is a special person and a special sports coach, that is for sure, but also a family man, a guy with a big heart, lots of experiences, players all over the world at all ages just love him, and it has been more than a pleasure to listen to his wisdom about so many topics that included why he got hooked to the profession of coaching and teaching in the first place. He told me about the secrets of a coach to build trust and establish leadership. We talked about having the courage of being yourself and why winning is not the goal but a byproduct of what you do. He talked about that his current downtime offers a great chance to reflect and to develop. And we talked about how to get yourself out of those mental holes that eventually gonna happen on your path. What to be grateful for and redesigning yourself was one of the topics we covered. And at the end, he let me in the secrets to winning with a team. So I had so much fun talking to him. Actually, I was just listening and concentrating as he was talking about his life and his experience, and I really enjoyed that conversation, so I bet you will do the same. So now let's sit back, relax, and have fun. Hello, Luciano Basile. Welcome to my show 74 Once More. Thank you very much for taking the time to share your experiences.
Yeah, thanks, Dieter, for having me.
What is, if you think about coaching, what's the big thing about coaching? Why do you love coaching so much?
I started helping out when I was very young as a coach. I started at 16 years old. And helping out with an under 13 team. And it just felt really natural to me. And in the end, when I went to university, I had decided I didn't think I could make a living out of coaching hockey. So I said, well, the next best thing would be to be a teacher. And I got a Bachelor of Education. Except that I realized only after I graduated that in a high school setting in Montreal, I realized that I was teaching more when I was coaching hockey than when I was in a high school environment where half the students didn't even want to be there, and I was doing more discipline than anything else. So I would say that I'm a teacher by vocation, and that's probably why I got into it. And why I've stuck with it for so long.
So what was your connection to hockey in the first place, and how did your career in that profession start?
Well, my parents are both Italian immigrants from Avellino, which is very close to Naples, and they immigrated to Canada. And I was born in Montreal, but I started playing hockey too late to make it at the level that I wanted. I mean, I couldn't. I started playing hockey only when I was 12, and when you start playing hockey at 12 in Canada, it's very, very difficult to attain a certain level. I started coaching while I was playing football, was what you call football, because basically my mom didn't want me to play hockey as a young because she thought it was a barbaric sport. And she said, play football. So I played football. And because I entered university very young at 17, I sort of couldn't play hockey and coach hockey and play football and attend university. So I had to make a decision. And I was getting more enjoyment out of playing football because I was a better football player than a hockey player. But I was also getting a lot of enjoyment out of coaching. And so that's how I got started. I don't know if I answered your question there, Dieter.
No, of course. But what I'm interested is you choose a profession where you found out pretty quick that this might not be the thing that you love, that you're passionate about. You change into sports where your passion was more profound than to a sport where you knew you didn't have a chance to go the professional way as an athlete yourself. So the closest thing to that, to living that kind of lifestyle, is coaching. And I was talking to some people before who went down that road. And what did you get hooked? Was it to be part of this kind of lifestyle? Was it because you wanted to be that kind of athlete and you wanted to have the next best thing, or was it that feeling that you have influence on building a team or winning something together with people? What was it exactly? That's what I.
Well, I had the experience of playing through the football playing, and the coaching and playing are two different things. What I liked was being part of a group. And, probably what I enjoy most is the family atmosphere present in all of the teams that I've coached. And that, I'm still in contact with some of the players that I coached when I was 16. I'm 60 now, and they're 55, 56. And a lot of them are Facebook friends. And we talk about getting a reunion going. And when I hear them say about the experience of playing on a team that I coached, they're telling me the same thing that players are telling me that are playing for me now. And that is, I like getting a group of people together thinking, one mind, one heart, everybody pushing together, everybody playing together. I think it's, I really think we're tribal in nature. It's like wolves, or dogs. Like you hear about pack of dogs, that are in. I've heard stories about Bucharest, for example, where there's dogs that roam the streets and. They make bands, they form bands. And I really think we are tribal in nature. And I think that sports is still one of the best opportunities we have to be ourselves, which is, I think we work better as humans when we work inside of a group, a tribe. And, my teams have always had this, us feeling, us against the world, we. I was listening to Bernie Sanders yesterday, one of his, the Democratic candidate who's going to go even at 76 for the presidency. And I think his slogan is "We, not me," or "Us, not I," "Us, not I," or "We, not I," or something like that. And I really think that we are at our best when we are working within a group, and I like that feeling, and I like that. I feel like I've never played music, but I feel like an orchestra conductor, and I like that feeling of working at getting people to think the same way and to care for each other and to push together for a common goal. That is, to me, what brings me the most pleasure from coaching.
So you have been in coaching, like I said before, for 3 decades. So
44 years, and I've been coaching professionally for the last 30.
Yes. Okay. 44 years. So you started really, really young, like 16, like you said.
Yeah.
What was, and just from my personal experience, especially when you talk about the coaching professional, it's all about respect and respecting the person who is supposed to be leading. Where does leadership come from, in your opinion? Where does trust come from? Because those are big words always used in this kind of group team settings. New people come in, and then you always hear, we have to trust each other, and and how this is something that is built over time. How do you think? What's the secret of a good coach to build this kind of relationship with players?
Well, I think you got to walk the talk, and I think that a coach, if you want to build trust, you have to be genuine. You have to be yourself. You have to have the courage to be yourself. There's different ways of leading. Leaders or coaches or managers in the business world that are, playing a role because they think that the coach has to be a certain way. So they're actors, People see right through that, and players will see right through that. And if you want to build trust, then you have to be genuine. You have to be out there. Players have got to feel you as a person and know that there's no hidden agenda. I think the best coaches are the ones that are just out there, genuine, honest, transparent. I think that it starts with that. If you want to build trust, then you have to be honest. And a lot of coaches, a lot of managers, if you want to extend it to the business world, a lot of CEO, presidents, or a lot of them are not great leaders because maybe they don't have the courage just to be themselves. I've seen successful coaches being very enthusiastic, and I see coaches that are very authoritarian that have had success. But I've also seen coaches that are, have no ego and are just, are selfless, and they're just working and doing, their objective is just to help the team, and they're very humble. And, you look at them and you say, wow, this is not the type of coach that, that has an aura, that is charismatic. But there's different ways of leading. And I think that's, the encouraging part is that I think everybody can be a leader. I think a lot of people think they can't lead a group because they're not charismatic enough. I think leadership comes from being yourself, but also knowing your subject, mastering your subject. I mean, you cannot lead if you don't know what you're talking about. So, players or employees will look at their superiors for solutions, and for guidance. And if you don't know what you're doing, that doesn't mean you need to know everything. Again, as a leader, it's, I think it's a lot more powerful when your coach says, I don't know. When somebody asks you a question and you say, I don't know. Let me think about it, though. I'll figure it out. Let me know. Let me give me some time. But you need to know your material. I mean, respect and trust comes also from competence. So a leader needs to be competent, needs to know his material, his subject matter, but I think he needs to be himself, first and foremost.
So you talked about different types of leadership and different ways of becoming successful. I had the same kind of experience throughout my whole career. There's different types. I experienced a lot of different types of leaderships, and all of them were successful or not successful. But there was specific types of leaderships that I enjoyed the most and where I felt at home the most. Which one was it with you? What were the role models? Where did you learn that? And where did you have the most success with? What kind of approach did you have as a coach?
I didn't learn it from top coaches because I didn't have the opportunity that you had, Dieter, to play at a high level where you had a variety of, really good coaches. I didn't have that experience. What I have done is, I've read hundreds of leadership books. I read, I devour books. Whether it's Bill Wall. I was just going through a book that I had read 10 years ago or 20 years ago, a book that came out in 1990. Bill Walsh, the famous San Francisco 49er coach. But I've read Bill Belichick and I've read. I can't even remember all of them, but hockey coaches, football coaches. Basketball coaches. Phil Jackson was a mentor for me, even though I've never met him, because he had a very spiritual approach to the game. And one of the things that I think my players often tell me is that I'm very philosophical because I'm always tying in the sport to life, like everything that is true in sport is also true in life. Like I tell my players every time the first meeting of the season when we get together, once the team has been put together, recruited, and we come to the dressing room, and the first meeting I have with them, my message is always the same, that my wish is that at the end of the season, every player will be a better hockey player, but will be a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better son, a better citizen, and, all of the values that are true in being successful in sport, which is, being altruistic and perseverance and all of those things that are essential in having success. I always believe, and I always tell my players, I want you to be successful this year on this team, but I also want you to take lessons that will help you be successful in your life after. And, reading about all of these leaders, like I said, I think in my library, I must have at least 200 books on leadership, things like Patrick Lencioni, for example, that has nothing to do on, the 5 dysfunctions of a team is a great book on putting together a team. But there's also stuff that I've been reading lately, Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way, for example, which is a book that has been given by coaches to their players, like the Seattle Mariners and the New England Patriots. It's philosophy and life in general and business and sport. There's so many things that tie them together. And there was also a chance meeting in I think it was 1994 or 95. Maybe you can help me, Dieter. It was the World Championships in Vienna.
That was 95.
95.
Yes.
I had been coaching youth hockey from the age of 16 all the way through 95, and I was losing my passion. I didn't want to coach kids anymore. I didn't feel there was anything there for me anymore, but I didn't know if I could coach senior hockey because I had never played, and I had this huge doubt, and I was wondering if I should step away from the game and, get into real life, find a real job. And I had heard these stories about this coach named Lou Vairo. Lou Vairo in 95 was the head coach of the American national team at those World Championships in Vienna. And I know that Lou Vairo, I know the story of Lou Vairo. He grew up in Brooklyn, New York. He never played a game in his life. He learned to skate when he was an adult. He could barely stand on his skates. And he coached Division I hockey in Italy. He was assistant coach in New Jersey. He is still working for USA Hockey, I think at 75 years old. And I sent him an email when I was named Coach of the Year for the third time in France. And we had won the championship, I think the third championship in 4 years. And I sent him a long email to tell him that, that I owed a lot to him. I went to the hotel where the U.S. team was staying, and I waited for him. I stalked him, and I waited for him to come in, and I told him my story that I had never played and really played at a high level, and I knew he had been a success, and I needed to talk to him, and he gave me an appointment on a day off of the team the next day. And he spent 2 hours with me talking. And he was the first guy who told me, when I told him about being afraid of not being able, to coach, not having played at the senior level. And he's the one who laughed and he looked at me and he said, but he goes, until you figure out that you don't coach hockey, you coach men that play hockey. And he was the first person that told me that. And he told me how difficult it was for him when he was coaching in Italy, where he had to do everything. He didn't have an assistant coach and he didn't know how to skate, basically. So it was difficult for him to run practices, and he had to gain his players' respect, even though he never played the game. And he had to put together the power play and the penalty killing and the breakouts and the forecheck, and then he told me, the higher level I got, the easier it was, because he goes, I have a ex-NHL player running the forwards and running the power play, and I have an ex-NHL player running the D, and he's taking care of the penalty killing. And he goes, we planned the practices together. I'm in the stands watching the practices, and he goes, I manage the people. A little bit like the way Alex Ferguson worked with Manchester United, with Carlos Queiroz, the Portuguese genius who after Alex Ferguson was never on the pitch. He was never running the practices. The coach was Queiroz. The manager was Ferguson. And Queiroz, after Ferguson's retirement, tried going on his own. And he had very unsuccessful stints both at Real Madrid and with the national Portuguese team. He was a good coach, but he was not a leader. The leader was Ferguson. And that's how I was able to, and I fed off of, there's a lot of leaders. There's a few coaches that I love. John Wooden, the historic coach of the UCLA Bruins, who coached for something like 60 years, I think. I'm not going to make it. My plan is to celebrate my 50 years coaching behind a bench somewhere, and that's 6 more years. But I won't be able to beat John Wooden, because I think John Wooden was coaching almost until he was 80 years old. And he was a coach that was very humble, very low-key, never talked about winning, always putting the players first. He was always saying, winning, if it doesn't come with virtue and truth and honesty, is not worth it, And he was such a humble, egoless person very low key. You can still look up interviews with John Wooden on YouTube, and you can get to see the kind of human being he was. He was an unbelievable human being. Phil Jackson, who fought against the status quo, who was doing something completely different, and it was all about collectivity. He had success with Michael Jordan in an era where the NBA was an individual sport. It wasn't a team sport. It was all one-on-one play. Basketball players would get the ball and they would try to beat their guy one-on-one, and it was man-to-man defense. So it was basically a one-on-one game. And Phil Jackson used Tex Winter's triangle offense, which meant that with the ball, there always needed to be a triangle. It was based on at least three players. And it was a real collective, approach to the game. And Phil Jackson was the first guy that I ever heard of that was encouraging his players to meditate, mindfulness, being in the moment, all of these things that are to me that I'm trying to do, that I've been trying to do in the last couple of years. So, that's where I got a lot of my influences. Sorry for the long answer, Dieter.
No. It's really interesting. That's why I'm not usually when I talk too much myself, but when I listen to something really interesting, I'm able to shut up. So thank you for all that, because I think it's really interesting what you said. Especially, I want the audience to understand where you come from, and especially in professional sports. You mentioned something that you were afraid. Maybe not afraid, but you had doubts if you were able to be as respected in professional sports with adults as you were when you built your reputation with youth sports, and you were a successful coach for many years already. But then that step to the next level, you were doubtful. You mentioned, yeah.
I got fired the first time. This was 95, and my first job was in Bressanone in northern Italy, in Südtirol. And yes. You must know Brixen. You must know Bolzano, Brixen. And I got there, I was hired there as a youth coach in Montreal and working with the Quebec Ice Hockey Federation. And I was fired after 1 month. We had 4 losses. We started the season with 4 losses, which was not a great start. But basically, the older players on the team looked up my resume or figured it out. In those years, there was no Wikipedia or Elite Prospects. It was different. They made a couple of calls and they went to the president and said, this guy never played the game pro. And I got fired, and I stayed on and was responsible for the youth sector there, and then went on and did 2 years in Varese and a year in Asiago. And there was a reason why I was fearful, is I felt, they were saying, this guy's never played the game. He can't coach.
No, I totally understand that from my personal experience. And maybe I would have thought the same way many years ago. But from my personal experience, I can say a lot of my best coaches through the years were guys that never played the game or only played on a low level. But they were good because they knew how to work with people. The biggest thing that you were talking about is that coaching is not about being a good in the sport or good in the profession. You have to be good at what you're doing, but you have to know how to handle people. And that's the thing. You have to have the feeling for the group. That's what makes the difference at the end. But coaching, there's a lot of good things about coaching. But what about the challenges with coaching? What did you find was challenging for you stepping into that profession?
Well, we're talking, I guess we're going to talk about maybe some of the things that I maybe not, enjoy least about coaching. I would say the fact that in my world, and I know, Dieter, that you know the hockey business really well, is that there are a lot of teams out there, but there are not a lot of projects. And what I mean by that is that, you get called and you get offered a job, and, the job is to coach that team and to win the next game. Because maybe, this year anyway, this is a sabbatical year for me, sort of, a semi-sabbatical. I'm still coaching the Spanish national team, but it's the first year since 44 years that I don't have a team, a club. And, for various reasons, I wanted to take this downtime because it's, I needed to, I think, to reboot. And, one of the things, I got a few calls this year, and I was very thankful for the interest, but it was all immediate, we need you to come in and, we need to make the playoffs. We need to win, the next couple games. We need to, whatever. And, there's not too many projects where, you said something before, building an identity, I think, that's where a coach has a huge impact on, is the culture of a team, the identity. Who are we? Who are we? I listened to a podcast last week on, Deepak Chopra, and he was advising everybody to meditate every morning and to ask themselves 4 questions, and the first one is, who am I? What do I do? What's my purpose? What am I grateful for? These 4 questions. And it's true for a human being, but it's true for a team. A team should ask itself, who are we? If a player doesn't know what the team is about, who are we as a team? What do we do? What is our purpose? That has to be defined. If you don't have those things to rely on, you can't have sustained success. It's not just about figuring out the power play, or are we going to forecheck with 2 or 1, or are we going to overload on the D zone? Are we going to shrink the zone? Those things can help win a game here and there, but it's all very superficial, because underneath all of that is the philosophy. If you have no philosophical foundation as a person, you're not going to have success in life. And if a team doesn't have that philosophical foundation, it's not going to have success. Every player on a team should know who the team is, what the team does, what's the purpose of the team, the identity, the culture. We play, we play fast. My teams, for example, we like to play fast, and we like to be aggressive without the puck because we want to have the puck. So when we lose the puck, we want to get the puck as fast as possible. When players know that, for example, it's not the system that's the most important. They don't have to be thinking all the time, what do I do as a first forward, second forward going into the zone? Do I forecheck? Do I not forecheck? Because underneath all of that, we know we want to get the puck. So we're going to be aggressive. We're going to play on our toes. These kind of things take time. And a lot of teams, and to get back to the question, I find in my business, the majority of teams are result-based. They just want to win. And I feel so out of tune with that because, Bill Walsh, I was talking about Bill Walsh. He won the Super Bowl with Joe Montana as a quarterback. You may be too young, Dieter. I don't know if you remember.
I'm familiar with the name, yes.
Okay, well, Bill Walsh inherited a team, the San Francisco 49ers. They were 2-14 the first year. 2-14 the year before he took the team. And the first year that he started implementing his culture in the club and on the team, he was 2-14 again. Now, in our world, 99% of the time, that coach gets fired. But it took him time. And on the third year he was there, they were a championship team. But it was all a question of implementing excellence as the pursuit of excellence, and implementing an identity and a culture. And Bill Walsh already understood in the 80s and the 70s and in the 80s something that still today is foreign. And when if you talk to a president or a general manager with this kind of language, a lot of them get turned off because they don't understand it. And so, okay, forget it. I don't want that. I want a coach that's going to come in and say, I'm going to win. But if you really want to win, if you want to have success, you have to understand that winning is not something you shoot for. It is a byproduct of what you do. Once, if once you establish an identity, a culture, once you put in the hours, once you work, and once you persevere. I have a personal experience that I'd like to share. In 2003, I was without a job. My team in the German Oberliga had gone bankrupt, and I was home. And then at that point, home was in Madrid with my ex-wife, who was Spanish, and I got a call from Briançon, and I went to a team that was a last place team that had a 70-year history in French hockey, that had never won a title in 70 years. The best they had done was they finished second in 1988. They went to the finals, of championship finals. And I got there, and the president was also the mayor of the city. And with the years, he became a good friend until he passed away 6 years ago, unfortunately, in a car accident. And, we went to 6 finals. We lost 6 finals. And, there were some people on the board, and fans were all screaming for the president to fire me because, the coach is a loser, can't win the big one. He lost 6 finals. And I couldn't understand that because I was saying to myself, but wait a minute. This team, this club, has played 1 final in 70 years before I get there in 1988. 1 final in 70 years. We go to 6 finals in 8 years, and they're going to fire me? I couldn't get it. I mean, I thought, yeah, okay, we didn't win the big one. But at the same time, I was also questioning myself. I'm saying, why am I not winning the big one? Why am I not winning the big one? And I remember before the 7th final that I got to, the day before, I got a call from a friend who maybe, I think you may have played against him. I'm not sure. I think he's older than you. Santino Pellegrino. He's a Montreal Montreal boy who played in Italy for a long time for the national team. Very skilled, smaller player. That may sound familiar to you, Dieter, because he was a very skilled, smaller player. And I remember him calling me the day before that final. And he gave me a great advice that I will remember for the rest of my days, And he knew how hard I was working in Briançon to bring a championship, and that we had lost 6 finals. And he said to me, he goes, Luch, he goes, let me tell you something about the best coaches I've ever had and the way they prepared us before the first game, before the final game, before the game 7 of a final, before, the cup final, that one game where everything is played in 60 minutes. And he said, the best coaches were the ones that kept it simple. Don't go into forecheck systems. Everything has been done, seen all year. You've been together all the year, and now you're in the final, 7th game of a final. He goes, you don't need to go into details. Keep it simple. Tell the guys to enjoy, to be in the moment, and just go out there and fly and play with your heart and play with your soul. And, he had given me that advice, and I incorporated it into the preparation of that final day. And we won that game. And there's two lessons in that. Don't overthink things, especially when you get to a big game or a big deadline, because there's already so much pressure there. You don't need to give the guys a motivational speech before game 7 of the final. You need to bring them down. You need them to understand that they're still playing, they're still going on the ice and playing a game that they've been playing since they've been 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and keep it simple. And keeping it simple and keeping it fresh, that opposes the importance of the game and allows the player to feel free. But there's another lesson to be learned, and that I think the number one quality to having success, if I'd have to put one quality above everything else, it is perseverance. Because a lot of people, whether it's in business, individual projects or a team, it's almost like that pot of gold is just around the corner, but they don't see it. And 90% of people give up because they fail too many times, and they don't understand that each failure is bringing them closer to that intersection where they will find that pot of gold, and it's there. You just have to keep at it. And when you ask me what I don't like about my profession, is that coaches normally do not get the time to build a team. And when I mean build a team, it's not, just recruiting 20 players, but, building a culture, building an identity, and going through the necessary failures. You need to lose to be able to win. But somewhere along the line, on one of those losses, the coach gets fired, unless you get really hired in a project and not a team. You're not just coaching for the next win. You're sort of piloting a project. And those opportunities as a coach, I find are very, very rare.
So there's a lot of wisdom in what you were saying, and so many things. I could form another 10, 15 questions just from the last 2 minutes you were talking about. What I'm trying to build here is a couple things you were talking about. First of all, you talked about being in a project rather than looking for the quick success, which is the reality in many professions in high performance worlds. And I'm trying to build that bridge between sports and high performance teams in other areas, let's say business, for example. But I think there it's the same thing. What's the difference between jumping in, having quick success? There's different things you can do to be successful. And then there's things where people build something that's lasting and that's successful, that's building relationships, and where you get something back that's not on paper. You give more than you get paid for. And that's something that I experienced in many years in my profession. I think do you think that's the biggest difference in organizations that are successful sometimes or never, and the ones that build some kind of culture where success is a possibility pretty much every time they try?
Yeah, I mean, I right now the book that I'm reading is Simon Sinek's Start with the Why, and he's probably the number one business guru in the world right now. And he talks about successful businesses like Apple, for example, who, people buy Apple products not because they're the best quality price ratio, or because they're the best product on the market, or they have the best service. It's not because of that. People buy Apple because of, it's like a lifestyle. People want to have Apple products because they think they're buying into a lifestyle. Apple. Steve Jobs very early wanted to go against the status quo. And he wanted I think the businesses that have sustained success, because there's always businesses that are successful and then that are not successful, and yes, there are ebbs and flows, but at the same time, I think the most successful businesses are the ones that have a clear identity. They know why they are doing what they're doing. They know what they're doing, what their purpose is, and success comes to them, but their focus is on themselves and on the product that they're building. It's not about, hey, what do people want out there? I think the most successful businesses or the really innovative people, whether it's coaches or leaders in the business world, they're not necessarily asking themselves, what do people want? Because sometimes people don't know what they want. They're actually inside their own heads trying to produce a product, and then people come to it. I mean, Simon Sinek used an analogy that was great, where the railway stations, went out of business, when the airplanes came in, and he was saying, if the railway companies understood that they were not a railway company but a transportation company, they might have jumped on the bandwagon of the airplane earlier. And why not if you're a railway company, and you ask, well, what do you do? Well, we run trains, we're a train company. But Simon Sinek was saying, well, what about if they would have thought, we're not in the business of running trains, we're in the business of offering transportation to people. So if they had that kind of a vision, well, maybe when the airplanes start coming out, instead of pushing them away and not realizing that the airplanes were going to push them out of business, they would have maybe, hey, let's maybe have an airline division. We're transporting people, so we can transport people with trains. We can also transport them with airplanes. But they didn't do that, and the railway companies, for the most part, which were was the number one business in the U.S. 100 years ago, they were the most powerful. Now you have the pharmaceutical companies, but 100 years ago, the most powerful business in the U.S. was the railroad company. They are not anymore.
So your development as a coach, as a leader, when was the time then you think that you found your way? Was there a certain specific moment? The way this is in the future, any job I take, it should be a specific way. This is how I want to lead. This is how I want to build the team. How long did it take for you to kind of grow that philosophy for you?
44 years and counting, Dieter. I don't believe in born leaders. I really believe that we teach best what we most need to learn. And, being in a position of, having the opportunity to lead has brought me also the opportunity to learn about leadership. So I would say it's an ongoing process. I wish I could answer your question and go back in time and say, that there was that epiphany, that moment where, that's where I knew that I don't see it that way. I just see this as a life, that's my purpose in life, and that's why I think I was born, and that's why I'm on the earth, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I always preach to my players, we're not competing against, if you're Klagenfurt, you're not competing against Graz and Vienna and Salzburg. We're competing against ourselves. We're trying to be the best version of ourselves, and the focus is inward. And I preach that to the players, but I got to walk the talk too. I got to do that. And that's what I try to do. That's why I think, for example, that this year, this downtime that I've had is a tremendous opportunity for me to grow in a way that I couldn't have when I'm swamped with work, because, the traveling and the games and the video and the recruiting, it's just so time consuming, and it's great. I love it. And you learn a lot, but you also don't have the opportunity to learn in different ways. And this year is offering me a different avenue, a different way to progress. I hadn't been reading too much. I know we've talked about this on, on phone and about our family situations. And, I started a family very late. I'm 60 years old. I have a 3-year-old. I met, the love of my life very late, and she wanted children, and she's younger than I, and being swamped with everything that a family entails, and what that is, and with the job I had, I didn't have the time to read a book a week, for example. I've had time to read books. I've had time to travel, to talk to people. This podcast that I'm doing with you is an opportunity for me to learn more about myself, because you're giving me the opportunity to verbalize things that I believe in. And that allows me to build even stronger convictions. It's helpful for me to do this podcast. I've also had a few opportunities to be speaker, a keynote speaker. I've spoken. I know that you do that too, Dieter, and I have that opportunity to do that. And I've also been traveling this year, going to see colleagues work, and having dinners with them, and having these talks about philosophy and team building and whatnot with coaches, and in Germany and Switzerland, colleagues that are working. So it's just a way of life. There's no end point, there's no destination. I think that's what life is. There is no destination. It's just a journey. And throughout this journey, I'm just trying to learn and become a better person and a better coach. And, maybe today I realized that that's what I was meant to do. I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this all my life, and the only fear that I have is that life is so short, and I wish I could live a long time, because I think there's so much still for me to learn. I still feel like I'm a young coach. I there's so much for me to learn still, and I think it's just the way of life.
You're talking about so many different interesting things, and I really want my audience to understand the kind of lifestyle you're talking about, because I'm in the same kind of situation, and you were talking about constant progress, constant learning through failure, building something, living a passionate life. The only fear is that you don't have enough time to do anything, to do everything that you ever want to do. I think that's a big difference to what many people, especially in your generation, were brought up to. I can tell from my own experience, where, after Second World War, where everything was built up in Europe, things were hard, but things were only getting better and better and better and better for many years. So the common thing was, you go to school, you build something, you get education, get a good job, you build your house, you find your family, and then you work your way up, and you wait for retirement pretty much, and then where life really begins. It's kind of retirement. So, this security part. So in my profession and your profession, security is something that's just a word, but so that means you have to adapt to this kind of environment by being ready, by preparing yourself, and by progressing and learning all the time. If you ever stop, then somebody just overtakes you, or you might stand without anything. Everything has to be earned. Nothing is secured. But with this kind of attitude, you have this kind of attitude, then there's no surprises really, because something bad is, no, not something bad, life is going to happen, and that's just the way it is. You have to adapt to new situation all the time. But how can you prepare yourself for that? Is that kind of lifestyle? I don't think many people are aware. They're just reading in the newspapers about professional coaches, about managers, people in positions with power or making a lot of money. Nobody really realizes what is the downside, the negative side, or the psychological pressure that comes with this kind of lifestyle. Is that something that weighs heavy on your mind sometimes, especially when the situation arises that you lose a job and you're in this kind of period that you're in right now?
Yeah, there's two things that you said that I want to. The first thing is when you said about the way a lot of people live, and life starts at retirement, and you said something about my generation, but there's somebody that's still a lot older. I don't think it's not a question of generation. There's always been people. I've been getting into lately in reading Marcus Aurelius and Stoic philosophers, and I mean they had it down thousands of years ago, and Woody Allen, for example, said something. I remember his quote on retirement. He goes, "Retirement is something for people that do jobs they don't like," and
I agree.
So Woody Allen probably now is close to 80, and it's true, I mean, I've been working out this year. One of the things I was unhappy about was my physical form. I was at 113 kilos last May at the end of the season. I'm now down to 100, and I'm working my way down by changing some habits, not dieting, but just changing being a lot more conscious, first thing of all, about what I'm eating. But also I'm working out almost every day. As soon as this podcast ends, I'm going to the gym, and I'm getting great pleasure in lifting weights and getting into better shape, because I'm afraid, I want to coach as long as possible, and to be able to do that, I know that I need my body to follow through. And so that's one of the ways that I'm using the downtime. But the second thing I want to get into, and I guess I didn't mention that, when you asked me about, this kind of life and what is the downside, but you mentioned it, is the lack of security. And that is probably, I would say, I didn't even answer that with that, but now when I heard you say that, I would say that is the biggest downside to this life, because, and I'm feeling it now more than ever, because I never felt it before, because I was single till I was 42 years old. I didn't care. I didn't need that much money. I didn't need that much security. I thought it was fun. I've coached in Italy. I've coached in Germany. I've coached in Spain and France, moving around, not knowing where I'd be the next year. That didn't faze me then. Now with kids in school, it's different. And, I know a lot of coaches, hockey coaches in my business anyway, so many of them leave their wife and kids behind, and they're coaching on their own. And I know that I don't want that life. I don't want that life, because my family now, I can say that now, my family comes first, and my work comes second. And so that's one of the reasons. My oldest one is getting his high school diploma this year. We couldn't move from Gap. And because it didn't work out with my club here after 5 years, I decided to stay on in Gap and allow him to get that high school diploma so that he can move on to university. And then with the two smaller ones, again, we will be mobile. and the idea is for the family to move. And I want to coach, and I have very clear what I want in my life, and that is to coach raising my family. I don't want to coach and my wife is raising the family somewhere else. I want to be there too. So, but yeah, that is probably the number one complication of my job anyway.
You are the progress of the team at the end of the day. You have to handle all the different characters on the team. You have to assign the roles. You have to make them understand the roles. You have to form this kind of identity that we talked about. And then you have to handle the personal issues that every player, every character is dealing throughout the whole year or season. But how do you deal with all the things that happen to people yourself? How do you get out of the holes yourself? Because it's one way to help other people to be smart with problems that arise for other people. I also know that for personal experience. But the killer question is, how do you deal with all the heavy stuff yourself? What kind of mental approach do you have, or what helped you get out of the hole of a mental breakdown?
I guess, this year, it was a very difficult. This has probably been the most difficult year of my career. I was up for a job that I really wanted, that wasn't in Gap. I thought I deserved it based on my performance. I know I was on the short list with another coach, and I thought I thought there was no chance that I could not get this job because the results were so, it was like the balance was, but I learned a really important lesson when I didn't get that job, and it's that politics are important, and you get jobs because of people, and he was politically stronger than I. I don't want to get into details of the job or anything like that, or naming names, but, I didn't get that job. And that was a huge disappointment for me because I had worked 15 years in France, and I had been the most successful coach in France, working with a budget that was not even a top 4 budget, both in Briançon and Gap combined. I was fortunate to be part of a team that had won 7 championships, 7 titles, between championships and cups. And I had been named Coach of the Year 4 times. There's no other coach that has been Coach of the Year 4 times. No other coach that has won championships with 2 different teams, back-to-back years, 3 out of 4 years, all of this. And still I didn't get this job. So that was a huge disappointment. And then within the 12 months, I got let go because of a disagreement with the manager, and it was here in Gap, and it was a very, very hard situation for me because I hired the manager. I was hired by the president, with all the success that we had in Briançon. He hired me to come to Gap, and he told me right from day one, I don't want you to be just a coach. I want you to coach this team, but I want you to be my personal advisor. I want you to tell me what to do to build this team. And we went from, when I got here, there was a coach, a trainer, and a manager, administrative manager, 3 people, a very small structure around Gap. And we built that 3 to 8 people. We brought in a secretary. We brought in a commercial, a salesman. We brought in a marketing and communications guy. We brought in préparateur physique. I don't even know how to say that in English. Yeah, physical trainer, a physical trainer along with the equipment manager and an assistant coach. And we built that team. We went from a structure, technical and administrative, of 3. We went up to 8. And I hired the GM. I told and I built I told the president that he would be the head of the organization, but we would create 2 different poles. One division was the administrative commercial, and the other one was the sports. I wanted to recruit the players, because one of the things you were saying about, how do you, selling players on it, it's a lot easier to give certain roles to players and having players accept them if you recruit them and you tell them what you're recruiting them for. If you recruit 15 power play specialists and then you leave 5 on the sideline, those 5 guys are not going to be happy. And so one of the major things about building an organization is start recruiting people and slot them in and ask, tell them what you are expecting them to do. There's a lot of guys out there that love, for example, if we're talking about hockey, there's guys that love blocking shots and killing penalties. They love that. Hire those guys to kill your penalties. Don't take a power play guy and then say, well, you're not good enough to play on the power play, so you're going to kill penalties. But that guy doesn't like doing that job. So it's the same thing when you're hiring inside of a company. Determine what you need and hire a guy to do that job. And that's it. And so, that's one of the reasons why the ideal role for me has been coach, sports director. And I thought I had built an organization. I had sold the president on having an organization where I was going to be the coach and the sports director, and where the manager was going to take care of all of the administration and the commercial. Except that the manager came in, and after a year or 2 years, hired some people to help him out and got bored. And then all of a sudden he wanted to take care of the sports. And he convinced the president, one of the reasons is that the structure, we weren't making money the last 2 years. And the president, the manager convinced the president that I had the highest salary and that I needed to go, and that it would be easier to continue along. And that's okay. I respect that. But all of these 2 things happened to me in the same year. And so now you're asking me how to get out of it. Well, for me anyways, philosophy has been the key, a certain detachment. I really believe we need to find downtime within our days to be able to handle all the crap that's being thrown at us, all the chaos, all the difficulties, the obstacles. Everything is coming so hard and fast, and the world is becoming more and more competitive, and you can get caught up in that stress, and when you do get these losses, or you experience these failures, like I experienced, not getting hired for a job that I felt I deserved, and being let go, I thought unfairly by I was saying to myself, well, I don't know, I built this organization, and once I built it, the organization is kicking me out. I don't understand. I didn't understand that. And philosophy and time to reflect has allowed me to come to certain conclusions, one of which is don't expect justice in life. Don't expect anything out of life. Take it for what it is. You said that before in one of the questions, accepting what comes at you, and being flexible. You talked about that, Dieter, a few minutes ago. And these insights, we're not born with them. We don't have a compartment inside of our body or inside of our mind where we just, click it on and all of these insights come to you, which allow you to better seize the situation and find the positive and the silver lining in everything that's happening to you. You have to do the work. You have to sit down and you have to reflect. You have to meditate, or you have to reflect. There's different ways of meditation. Maybe some people take long walks. Sometimes insights will come from doing menial things like cleaning the yard or washing the dishes, for example, where you're doing something but there's room for your mind to go somewhere else. But you can only get out of a hole if, again, like everything else, there is no success without effort, without work. If you want to get out of a hole, then you have to find the silver lining. And to find the silver lining, I don't believe people are born optimists. You're not born with, a positive outlook in life. And, okay, but you have to work at that too. That's something you have to work at, being positive and, believing that obstacles come for a reason, and that every obstacle, every failure I have to believe that the failures that I've gone through in the past 12 months, I've got to believe that they're coming to prepare me for something even bigger. I have to have faith. That's what gets me out of the hole. Is the understanding that this is not a setback. This is a failure that is giving me the opportunity to grow even more and to be even a better coach in the future. And maybe I will get the opportunity somehow, somewhere, at even a higher level, or to do things differently. I know a lot of coaches. We were talking about Graz just before we started the podcast. I consider Doug Mason to be a friend, even though he's not a close friend, but he's somebody I really respect. And he's somebody that advised me. He also spent a year not working and traveling and reflecting. And he told me, he said, I would not be where I am now if I wouldn't have had that year of downtime. He goes, I would have stayed where I was at a lower level. And he goes, that gave me the opportunity, like a failure actually breaks the ice. It's sort of, it allows you to go into another dimension, and attain, being able to accomplish things maybe that, maybe you hadn't planned, maybe it'll bring you into another direction. Maybe, I want to coach for at least, until I'm healthy enough and I enjoy. But maybe in a year I'll be doing something else and I won't, and the plan that I had didn't work out, but I'll be really happy. And I'll say, oh, well, thank God for that downtime, because it allowed me to come to this destination.
I've been thinking about this stuff quite a bit myself. And even if you take you said that, every failure is, you have to have faith that something, it might be a sign that you have to change something about yourself and kind of embrace this opportunity. I don't know if I find the right words for it, but even if you take away this kind of spiritual approach, I think, you got your nose bloody for whatever. Yeah, obviously you have to change something, and you start with the man or with the face in the mirror. But the next biggest thing, and this is where my next question is going to lead, is what you do with that information decides everything. Do you feel pity about yourself? Do you feel that you've been treated in a just way? Or do you see it in the right way, where you say, okay, you know what? Damn it. It is what it is. I have to analyze the situation, of course. What could I have done better? But what am I going to do next? What's the next step? Where do I have to learn? How do I have to grow? Is the glass half full or half empty? And even though it's a bad situation, it's raining outside, but can I be happy about rain as well? Or do I have to feel like, where I'm getting to? From my experience, the biggest or a huge difference between, let's call it, winners and losers a little bit, is this kind of thinking, especially when bad things happen, because everything is great when everybody's successful. You don't have to think. And especially if you're a coach, for example, you might get away with stuff sometimes where you don't have to change because it ended up well or good anyway. So you can continue the same things that you've been doing that might not have been good in a way, but you can still sustain it. But once you get fired and you have to rethink yourself, and that's what you said, you embrace this year of winding down and thinking about yourself and learning and growing and getting your vision clear again. If you see it as a big chance, even though it sucks, it's not fun, but if you see it as a big chance, probably more helpful than the other way around. But the question I have for you is, as coaches in every aspect of life, we teach about techniques, we teach about systems, especially in sports. But do we teach enough when it comes to preparing your mind for all the stuff that comes with the profession you're looking into? You know where I'm getting to? I
think I'd like to. I'm writing notes because your questions are really good, and you're saying things that I want to build on, and I keep on writing these things. And I think it's important to enjoy the moment, enjoy what you have. Right now, I don't have a full-time job, but I have time. I have so much time to spend with my kids, and that I didn't have before. And I'm lucky. Like one of the things I try to ask I try to take a little bit of time. I'm not that good yet with that. I've got to be more disciplined, but I think often about what I'm grateful for in this period. And I'm grateful for the time I have with my children. I'm grateful for the time I have with my wife. I'm grateful for, having the time to take care of my body. I say to myself, I'm lucky, maybe, I was 113 kilos in May. Maybe if I would have continued, I would have had a heart attack along the way. You have to be positive about it. I'm lucky not to have a job at this moment. I think this is what I needed right now. I also needed to redefine why I'm coaching. One of the things I'm realizing now, and I'm trying now, I'm really trying it. It's been for just a couple months, but I just want to help now. It's, I've done everything I think I've done everything for myself. I've proven to at my level anyway, that, that I can do what I do. We're ego driven when we're younger. We want to prove ourselves. We want to show the world who we are and what we can do. And now, this downtime has allowed me to redefine why I'm doing this. And one of the things that I'm getting a lot of enjoyment is helping. Like, for example, this weekend when I went to an under 18 evaluation camp, I worked for a couple of coaches. I was just helping them, and I love that. That's one of the things that I may approach my job differently the next time. Maybe it's going to be more about helping my players, helping my club, helping my organization. Coming from when you said when you get your nose bloodied. Maybe there's some humility that can be gained from that. Like in terms of French hockey, I was on top of the world, and then in a split second, I'm not. And, it's allowed me to come from a more humble spot. Maybe I'm not going to be the same coach. I'm going to be a different coach. I might be just as successful, but in a different way. And with different motive. Right now, I really enjoying helping people, helping players. Players call me, some of my ex-players call me when they're having difficulty, in a certain place with a certain coach or a certain situation, and I'm offering them help. Coaches call me, that has helped. That's one of the things that this has allowed me to do. And the other thing, the question where you said, we spend a lot of times teaching and coaching. Well, I've progressed a lot tactically because since I didn't play the game at the high level, I read about all the books, but I've also been attending, for example, the IHF, where we've crossed many times, the IHF coaching conference. I've been attending that since 1995. And last year I was at the Coaches Site conference in Toronto. I've attended the Roger Nielsen, the international Canadian conferences that no longer exist. I mean, every opportunity I took to, we didn't talk about this, but every opportunity I've taken, I like to think my teams are very structured, very hard to play against because we're very organized, and we don't only have systems, and that's something that I would like to touch on briefly, but that's also important that you figure out who you are, how do you want to play. Because then it's easier to choose the systems to align. You can win with a very aggressive system. You can win with a more passive system. It's not a question of which is the better system. It's if we want to be a team that plays fast, that is aggressive, that wants to recuperate the puck, then we're not going to trap. We're not going to wait in the neutral zone for the puck. Not because it's not a good system. And this is something that I used to fight with my assistant coach about, because he would say, no, we should do this. But I said, yeah, but that doesn't align itself with who we are. We should choose our system based on who we want to be as a team. It's easier after to choose your systems to follow, because there's a line there before, there's a direction before, there's an identity. So, I think I've progressed a lot tactically, and I think I now think I'm a pretty good tactical coach because my systems are all aligned. They're all aligned, and they all help us be who we want to be as a team. That being said, in 2017, we won the championship. We're the only team that has ever beat Rouen at home. Rouen has only lost one championship at home in their history, and it was to us, to Gap, in 2017. And we came back home, and of course we partied the day after. And I was having some beers with my players, and I was no more their coach. And for the first time, one of my players was smoking a cigarette, and he says, "Come on, coach, let's have a smoke together. I know I've seen you smoke a cigarette once in a while." And it's not that the relationship is no more player coach. And I remember being with Max Ross, just a great guy, a University of Calgary boy. And I remember, and this is something that I will remember. And I was telling him about how I had progressed tactically and where I had come from not being an ex-player, and how much I had invested in learning the game, the conferences, and then I go on. And, I guess we were on a couple of beers, and he looks at me and he tells me, and sorry for the language, but he goes, "You have no fucking clue why you're a good coach, do you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, it's not the systems. He told me about this situation early in the season. I think it was late in the training camp, and he was a D-man, and he was trying to gain the red line to dump the puck in, right? And he went to the red line close to the boards, and he really, he wanted to get to that red line, just to put the puck in deep, but he put himself in great danger. He got killed. Now, this is a player that is 6'2" in meters. We'd say 185, 186, 95 kilos, big defenseman, right? But he got murdered. I mean, he got plastered. The player aligned him because he knew what he was trying to do. He just wanted to get to the red line and dump it, and he just got killed. And he came to the bench, and I had told him, I go, "Why did you do that?" He goes, "I had to get the puck in deep, And I said, "Yeah, but you just got killed trying to do that. Why didn't you just chip the puck or turn back and give it to your partner? Why do you want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to get killed like that, you know? And I didn't remember that situation, but after that championship, he said, when you told me that, I knew you had my back. I knew you cared for me. And he goes, I was going to do anything to please you. And I wanted to play for you because I knew you cared for me as a human being. And he said, that's why you're a good coach, not because of your systems. So I would say, if you're good at people management, you got 70% of the game down. If your systems are 30%, but to win, you need 100%. So you need the systems, but you also need to realize that that's only going to be 30% of the equation. The rest is the human part. You know, I think as a coach, I'm really demanding really hard in that way, but I'm not hard. I don't have a hard heart. You know, I'm demanding. I'm really hard. If a guy pussies out, if he doesn't go to the net because he doesn't want to get his hands dirty, he won't go to the corner, won't chip a puck out of the zone because he doesn't want to get hit, that kind of stuff, I can be really hard with a player, you know, or if he's not following a route on the power play breakout, I will be really hard with a player that way. But I'm not hard. I've got a soft side, you know. I care about my players. I coach them as if they'd be my sons, you know, and I love them, you know, and I will tell my players that, you know, some of my ex-players, sometimes when I meet them, will imitate me and will say something that I said, and that stuck with them because I guess not too many coaches will tell a player, you know, I love you, you know, that part, that human part, and maybe it goes back to Lou Vairo, and I think that Lou Vairo and I had the fortune of being brought up in Italian families, where I remember in first grade where the teacher was asking all the kids, how many people, you know, introduce yourself, how many are you in your family? And, you know, they would say, oh, we're 3, you know, or we're 4, we're 5. And when it came to me, I said something like, we're 48, because I didn't see my immediate family. I didn't see the family as a unit. I mean, I remember us having our front door always open, no keys. My uncles and aunts, you know, cousins would come into the house without even knocking. They'd just open the door and come in. And if it was at lunchtime, well, sit down, you know, siediti, mangiamo, you know, let's eat, you know, sit down. I was brought up in that kind of environment. And I guess that family doesn't exist anymore now, because when I go back to Montreal, my aunts and uncles have passed away or are sick. My cousins have moved out. Some are living in Canada still. Some have moved out. That family only exists in the past, in my past, where I remember New Year's Eve and Christmas, where we'd be like 50 people in a small apartment. It would be crazy, an Italian family, food and loud and music, you know? And I think I try to recreate that in my teams somehow, you know? Like it's the only place where I can still go back to my past and live that wonderful time where there was a lot of love and everything was loud and we fought with each other, you know, which is what real teams do, you know? And I think, you know, if I could, you know, if somebody's out there listening that is trying to extrapolate what I'm saying to, you know, how could I apply this to, you know, my sales managers, or, you know, how could I do this in my company or in my store where I have maybe 10 employees? And I would say, you know, one of the problems with modern society is that families are really being challenged. And I think if we can recreate a family atmosphere, even in our work environment, I think players and people perform better when they feel like they're part of a family, and I think that is part of my coaching.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing that, all that. I think that's pure gold. The coach doesn't have to be the guy that knows everything for everybody. It has to be a leader in certain times, especially when things get tough. Then there's a lot of heads turning, looking at the coach to make a quick decision. But most of the time, people just want to be treated as people. I can only 100% agree from my own experience that guy is going to take care of the room together with the coach. And the human factor is something that is overlooked, and people think, oh, it has to be so professional. It has to be clear. Everything is just down to money and business decisions and what is on papers, and you have to perform and perform and perform. But things are won and lost just between humans. And people are performing the best when they feel connected and when they feel respected and when they're having fun and when there's emotions. And that doesn't have anything to do with not being professional or not being good at what you do. And I think that's maybe different words of that's how I understood your kind of philosophy. And that's exactly how I'm thinking. So I'm really thankful for hearing that. Can I ask you a final question?
Yeah.
Before I find an end to this really interesting conversations, and like I said before, I'm really grateful for you sharing all those really personal memories and that you allowed us to go so deep.
Thank you, Dieter. Thank you, because I don't think about that a whole lot, and when I talk, I go back there, and this podcast has been so much fun for me because it's. I realize things, reliving them, and it's given me an opportunity to do that. So thank you.
What is your ultimate goal in life, and how do you define success?
That's a podcast, Dieter. That's not a question. That's an interview. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, well, they try to keep it within the frame.
Definition of success, and what was the other one?
Your ultimate goal in life. Now, looking back at your career, you're 60 years old. You have you're in a unique situation. I'm really happy I have you in front of a microphone because you have a specific type of profession. You have so much experience. You won so much. And you're a 3-time dad at the age of 60 with the young one. The youngest one is 3 years old. That's a special situation. I guess that your friends are not in this kind of life stage.
A special situation and a special challenge also.
Yes. Well, that I know from personal experience myself. So this is why I'm asking, how did your look at life change? What's your ultimate goal now?
Ultimate goal in life. My ultimate goal in life is to continue having the opportunity I have to grow. I think, my ultimate goal in life is to grow. I know it's really basic, but, I'm really am becoming, as the years go by, more and more process oriented, and I'm convinced that if I continue growing, good things will happen to me, that I will be successful in the future. I cannot, it's not, my ultimate goal is not to coach at a certain level or to make a certain amount of money, or it's not result based. It's growing is the opportunity to grow is a gift. It's not something we should take for granted. If we are sick, if we don't have health, it's hard to grow. you know. Um, I therefore I'd like to be healthy enough to have the opportunity to grow more, both as a human being and as a coach. I would say that's my ultimate goal. I know that doesn't sound, it's not attractive. It's not sexy answer. It's not about, who, where I want to be, but it is that, because I think, I would like to get to know myself. This may sound strange to a younger person listening, because they think that, at 60, if I say that I want to get to know myself even better, I want to know who I am, even more, I want to grow. And these things, it's not because you're 60 that you can't figure out even more. You can't go even deeper into who you are and what your purpose is and what you want to do in life, and what you're grateful for. These are things that you can think about, and you can progress at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. I'm convinced until the day we know more, we're here no more. I would like to have the opportunity and the time to grow. That's my ultimate goal. My definition of success is, well, I guess I would say I'm a rather successful person, because I I have made a living out of something that the thing that I enjoyed the most. Like I've told people, I would probably still be coaching even if I didn't get paid for this. I would probably be in Montreal. I would have had a job. Maybe I would have continued teaching or had a job, and I would have been coaching at the minor level. Maybe, like I never did this for the money. There's nothing more I would rather do with my life than coach. This is my passion, and the living came out of it. I mean, when I look back and I think about it now, I say, wow, I made a living out of, I never really looked to make a living out of this. I just did and tried to get better at what I was doing, and I was in it, and I was just doing what I loved most, and that combined to my family. And my definition of success is, like, I know there's coaches out there that are coaching at a higher level and, making more money than what I was making. But I also know coaches that were, been making a lot of money, and, they've got a daughter that is 20 years old, but they've missed maybe 12 birthday parties of their daughter. I know coaches that have sons that play hockey that don't have time ever to see their sons play. I live a life. I'm talking to you, and if I look to my right, I see my garden here. I have two chickens that are. I can see my two chickens out in the garden, and I have living in a good place, and with not too much chaos around and noise, and raising my family, and I'm in a place where the family is really. My boys are really happy here. They have a lot of opportunities. They have good schools, and they have friends, and they're playing sports. My 8-year-old right now, talk about multi-sport. I mean, my 8-year-old is playing hockey, playing football, he's skiing, and he's playing handball. I sometimes tell my wife it's a little bit too much, because he's very competitive and he goes hard in every one. But, I think I'm successful because my children and my wife are happy, and I have them with me. And I've been coaching at a level where I could still be close to my family this year, more so than others. But I think the definition of success is, if you're able to make a living of what you love most, And if you do decide to have a family, because I think you can be successful, I'm not saying you need to be married and have kids to be successful. You can be single and be successful. But in my case, anyway, it's making a living out of what I enjoy most and watching my family grow and be happy. I think that, to me, is my definition of success.
Thank you very much for all the insight, your wisdom, and your time. I hope you enjoyed this podcast as well. I will take some time to reflect on all that. And until we meet again, my friend, thank you very much and good luck.
Thanks, Dieter. It was really nice spending this time with you. And thanks for the opportunity to dig deep inside of myself, because that's how we learn. And you've given me the opportunity to grow a little bit in this last hour and a half. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening, and I hope this episode was interesting to you and you got something positive out of it. I want to say thank you for all the support so far, and anybody who wants to keep helping me in growing this project 74 once more is very much welcome to do so. Just go to iTunes, write a little review, subscribe, share the links, comment, leave a like. Anything like this will help very much and is much appreciated. You can also find me on Instagram at DieterKalt74 and also on Facebook at 74 once more. There you get the latest news, behind the scenes, footage, and so on. So until then, I hope you guys stay tuned and take it easy.